Suppose, Mr. Progressive Citizen, some large industrial firm were to say to you, "We want to bring to Williamsport an industry which will place in local circulation some hundreds of thousands of dollars." With that appeal in the Gazette and Bulletin in 1920, the idea of a grand hotel in Williamsport was born. Williamsport visionaries thought a hotel would modernize the centrally located city in the heart of Pennsylvania and boost the economy. $750,000 had been pledged by the citizens of Williamsport, and on April 2, 1921, the new hotel project was breaking ground.
The townspeople in 1922 passed a hat to build this hotel, so it was by public subscription. There was no major hotel here in the 20s. The publishing company, the power company, the gas company, the water company put in something like $25,000 or $50,000 each and bought stock. A mom and dad might have bought $100 shares. A family might have pitched in together and bought a $100 share. So it was really, truly owned only by the people in this community.
The hotel officially opened on June 21, 1922, and a weekend of dinners and parties followed. In 1922, a night in the Lycoming Hotel cost $4, which is equivalent to $70 per night in 2022. Less than a year after opening, the hotel was self-supporting and was so heavily booked they could not accommodate everyone who wanted to stay there. By 1927, over 265,000 guests had stayed at the hotel. The hotel survived the Great Depression and World War II. In 1947, it was reported that more local banquets were held at the Lycoming Hotel than any other single place. And in 1975, Gus and Val Genetti purchased the Lycoming Hotel.
In 1975, I was getting ready to clear my desk to go on a trip to Hawaii, and as I was shuffling through my papers, I found a trade magazine called the Hotel Herald, and a picture of the Lycoming Hotel was on the front, and it said, "Want to buy a hotel?" And I had heard that the hotel was up for sale, and I was interested in historic hotels. So my wife and I drove over to take a look at it, and we fell in love with it. I couldn't pay the $800,000 they were asking. I could only pay $600,000. He went to the owner, Mr. Tom Ryder. Mr. Ryder spoke to me, wanted to know what I was going to do with the hotel, and I told him I would do my best to run the hotel as a community effort, which is how it started in 1922. Mr. Ryder accepted my offer, which was a problem for me, as I mentioned, because I didn't have any funding and I had no available cash. Mr. Snyder then started to fill out the agreement form and asked for $60,000 for a deposit. I figured this is a good way to get out and leave town with my head held high, so I offered him $5,000, and he said that's not enough. And I said, okay, fine. So I thought I was off the hook. And he went to Mr. Ryder, and Mr. Ryder said, we'll accept the $5,000. So there was another problem, because my wife had the checkbook and it only had a few $1,000s in it, but we couldn't cover the check. But I had to write it out anyhow. We gave him a check for $5,000, and that's how it started.
In the 100 years since the hotel opened, the Lycoming Hotel, and more recently, the Genetti Hotel, has been a staple of the Williamsport community. From conference meetings to weddings and graduations, and hosting dignitaries and public figures such as Robert Kennedy, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Cy Young, the hotel that was built by the community continues to hold a special place in the hearts of all who visit.
You can't go anywhere in town with someone who hasn't worked at the Genetti, who didn't get married here, or wasn't here for their high school prom. Just the way it is in town. And even though there have been many, many more hotels open since the Genetti did in 1922, they still referred to this as the hotel. You can talk about any of the others, but this is the hotel.
I started working here in the hotel in 1985 when I was in high school. I worked in many different facets during my 20-year stint here prior. I was a banquet server, a banquet bartender, a banquet captain. I became the front office manager, and then I did outside sales as well, and then I became the assistant general manager and came back as the general manager just recently in December. December.
If you go to our historic society, it is a really nice thing, and you can learn about how many trains used to pass through here. That's another area that people should really explore. We had an area where we had 22 tracks side by side where they parked trains. We were the hub again. You would take the ore off the Great Lakes and bring it right through here. You would go from New York City to Cleveland, right through here. You would go to Washington, D.C. from Buffalo, right through here. We're 4 hours from Niagara Falls, so we were getting a lot of tour buses. They would tour Niagara Falls in the morning and spend the night with us. When I arrived 30 years ago, we were the host hotel and had been for 50 years for Little League. When all the teams came, they had to come to the Genetti to get their information. Our whole lobby was set up with banks of phones. We had drivers that would have new cars from all the car dealerships out front. And when people would come, the dignitaries, they'd be whisked around. They'd come into our lobby. Many of them stayed with us.
Another, of course, worldwide event is the Little League World Series, which we have been the host of for many years. We still host the Little League World Series breakfast here every year, and we have pin trading events, which is huge during Little Leagues. We have multiple guests that return year after year after year just to come to the series because it is really an amazing event.
As the Genetti Hotel enters its second century, its legacy will continue to impact guests and residents of Williamsport for generations to come.
I think that our guests really say it well, that we are hospitality. And it starts with when you drive up to the parking lot and you enter the hotel, the sign above the door says, "Welcome home." We mean it.
I like to, of course, walk through the lobby and the restaurant at different points throughout the day and say hello to guests and chit-chat with them as well and find out where they're from, if they're enjoying their stay. And of course, if they have dogs, I will pet everyone's dog.
I first found the Genetti Hotel when I was on a road trip from Michigan to New York City. It was kind of a good stopping point. I thought it would, be just a place to sleep, but I found that after staying here now 6 times, that it was so much more than that. When I got here, the staff was the most amazing group of people that you'd ever want to see in any hotel. When we're driving from Michigan, it's, gets pretty late, so it's always nice to see a friendly face when you show up at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's just amazing to have been here so many times and now be a part of its history as we celebrate the Lycoming Hotel and Genetti Hotel's 100th anniversary here in Williamsport.
We've had a lot of exciting things happen here over the years. 100 years, that's a long time. My wife and I have been looking forward to the 100th year celebration. Unfortunately, she passed away from COVID 2 years ago, so she won't be here, but all the rest of my family will be here. We'll be celebrating.
There's a lot of things that have come and gone, but the city continues.
My favorite thing about working here is I'm from Williamsport, born and raised, and I remember when I was very little in the early 70s and walking with my father down West 4th Street in front of the hotel, and at that time the restaurant and bar was called Ronaby's. The windows were really dark, and I asked my dad what was inside, and he said, "Oh, it's a beer garden, you don't want to go there." And of course, that made me want to go there. And so it's just kind of ironic today that I'm the general manager here in my hometown, and to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the hotel. I think that is just what makes it so special for me.
I would imagine, since I am now 83 years old, that I won't be around for the 200th anniversary or even the 125th. And I would like to see that the Lycoming Hotel name be put back on after I'm gone. At 83, it's a foregone conclusion that will happen sometime. Hopefully not for 10 or 20 or 30 years, but hopefully the next owner will be as caring about this hotel and this institution as I am, and I think they will be. I don't think the town would accept anything less than what this hotel has meant for the last 100 years. There will never be competition that can match this hotel because it is timeless. And it's got the soul of the community in it. And you can't stamp out the soul of the community. To the Williamsport people, I love you. You've been great to us, but we're not the owners of this hotel. We're only the stewards. We've taken it over for several decades, and I hope I'm around to see a few more decades, but I know that it's going to do well, and it will be here for as long as Williamsport is.
As we celebrate 100 years of history and 100 years of hospitality, welcome to the Genetti and welcome home.
There have been many stories about this hotel over the last 100 years, and a lot of it has to do with the paranormal. And I have to be honest with you, some of those stories, just recently our executive chef said that he was going upstairs and he passed by a trash can. Nobody was around, and all of a sudden the trash can lid started to flip. There was no wind, there was no reason for it, and that's his story. There are stories of people who see things. There's a photograph of a mystery woman that was taken in our ballroom that has been passed around from year to year. And I have to tell you that paranormal, feng shui, all these stories that are told, I have no belief in them whatsoever. I don't believe in ghosts. However, I never ride any of these elevators alone.